starting out, I am going to actually draw the left side instead of going with the eyes. I normally draw the eyes first and then go around that, but because this is a totally different animal, I am starting from left to right. And I also was just like super challenged by the wings, so I wanted to go ahead and just kind of get it over with to figure out like the method of how I'm going to actually do this. I didn't want to sit around and just work on the middle and then stress out about how am I going to actually draw the wings and the patterns in the wings. I would say dragonflies are my least favorite to draw because the wings are so detailed and delicate and monotonous in a way. So I'll just show you the method that I used, and if you are interested in learning to draw your own dragonfly, just follow along. Yes, it is very very difficult to say the least, very boring at the same time, but I hope that maybe this method will help you. So I just went with the straight black color pencil first and started to kind of draw a similar pattern. I didn't draw exactly what I saw other than just the major lines, but the details, the patterns themselves, I kind of went with a more natural method on my own rather than trying to draw exactly what I saw, mostly for my own mental sanity. So if you are trying to save your mental sanity, just do the same thing. Make sure you have a nice sharp color pencil for this and use the black color pencil or just a super dark color pencil to start out with. If you're kind of struggling with the way it looks, where maybe it looks a little bit too geometric or too messy, slow down and just kind of go back to how you first started, kind of work into those geometric shapes. Some of them are square, some of them have 3 sides, but let it kind of bend and curve a little bit to the direction of the wing. You see how those lines are kind of curving down? It's about the same way with the pattern, where some of the lines and the squares are naturally just kind of curving down. So they're not actually geometric. They're a little bit more like an organic geometric shape, if that makes any sense at all. So slow down, kind of work with what you got. Yes, we'll start to apply a whole bunch of other layers and use white color pencil to whiten in the center of these. But it is just a matter of taking a deep breath and going section by section, and know that the end result is going to look good no matter what. But make sure that you leave room for, more of the white space, because the wings are supposed to be like translucent, right? So you've got a little bit of the background showing up, like some of the colors of the background showing up, but you can still see the details of the wing. So as you're drawing this, think about that. So you're not going to have completely white spaces in between these shapes. You'll have a little bit of color in there, but it's not going to be dark either. So if you're heavy-handed, lighten it up. Be mindful of that and make sure that you're lightening it up. But if you are light-handed, that's actually really good for this portrait because it is such a delicate feature. So you're good to go when it comes to being light-handed. Now I use a light blue color pencil to apply a little bit of like the reflective tone to some of the areas. Like look at the reference image and see, okay, so where is it really shiny? Where is it reflecting? Apply that in there. You can also use a little bit of some darker blue, like a grayish blue, in some of those areas to also create a sense of depth and a little bit of a darker reflection that's going on. Since, like I said, these are translucent, not transparent or solid, there's going to be some depth that's going to be happening in this portrait. So just be mindful of that as you keep going, and be very careful about not drawing too dark or too heavy. So I ended up drawing too heavy in some of those lines, so I ended up erasing some of it and then going back over with a lighter color pencil, like this white color pencil here, to kind of blend it together a little bit better. Because you can also see it just looks very like separated. So using that white color pencil kind of helps to blend it a little bit more, make it look more cohesive. And then you can always go back over with the black color pencil to add a little bit more sharpness, and not for all of it. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding some sharpness to only sections, not the whole thing. What that does is it makes it look more natural than if it were just to be copied and pasted, like a real drawing would be. So it would just be drawn all flat 2D. But having this sense of depth where some of the lines and the patterns are lighter and some of them are darker, that actually creates a more natural look. So now that we've got that the two left wings done, let's move on to the body here. So this body, I definitely struggled with getting the color right, but if you use a blend of different blues and greens, almost like a sea green, a little bit of a sea blue as well, and think about, where is the lighting coming from? Where do I see those highlights? Work around those highlights first, and then start to add the details in afterwards. That's very important when it comes to colored pencils, because you can't fully erase, for one, and then for two, you can't add white on top of any dark coloring that you've already applied. I'm also using a little bit of a brown because you could see there is some brown in some of this portrait, even though you really wouldn't think so. But I also apply a little bit of some brown in the wings later on, so you'll see what I mean. But it is about the details. So you can see like the eyes, right below the eyes. I do not know the anatomy of dragonflies. I should probably study the anatomy on these things if I'm going to be drawing them. But the rest of the head going into the rest of the body. So you can see that neck is very thin. And then going into the rest of the body, I'm working with different colored blues and then using a black and a little bit of brown to add a sense of depth. Draw very light for the first couple of layers. That way, if you do make a mistake, you can erase it. Now, you can see I'm also erasing some of the sketch that I did because I don't want that sketch to come through. I don't want it to look like you could see any of that graphite pencil at all. Sometimes I'll also accidentally trace a little bit too big or too out of the way. So I'll end up erasing it anyway, just to, correct my, whatever you call it, proportions, essentially. So that's what I end up doing. And don't erase it fully, just lightly, because you do still want to have the outline so that you're not going too out of the way. In the body section here, there's not a whole lot going on, so it's going to be pretty basic and easy, but you do want to kind of create a nice transition from the wings, the ends of the wings, to the body. So I use a little bit of a heavier pressure with the black color pencil and let it kind of blend and get a little bit lighter as you're going out. But there is this different kind of mosaic look in the body itself. So just play around with it and kind of try to draw more as to what you see as best as possible, at least for this part. Mostly because there are probably some parts that anatomically you do want to have more correct. So this area here, definitely want it to be as correct as possible. Proportionally, it may not look all that accurate, especially for my drawing here, but just it's more important to have fun with it than to make it like anatomically correct. So just keep going, keep practicing, enjoy the process itself. That's what's the most important part. And then make sure that you do have a variety of different colors. So this one, I used a lighter color, blue, and then now I'm using a variety of different blues to kind of blend it together, create a nice sense of shading for the tail of the dragonfly, and then use the white to kind of blend it a little bit more so that it's faded in some. And go back over with the black color pencil. Now I do use a little bit of brown in with the black just to warm it up. I think it makes it look a lot more realistic when it's not just the straight black color pencil. But for this area here, you definitely want to have a sharp color pencil to draw in those details and be very strategic about how you're applying those lines. So there's 2 lines for most of those parts of the tail. So yeah, you do want a small, really nice and sharp point, and then the lines are not like 100% going all the way across, so you can see there's a little bit of gaps. That's what actually makes it look more realistic than if they were just solid lines. And then that line going down the middle, that's going to pretty much tie it all together. So you can see that the direction of the light's coming from the right hand side, so there is a little bit of shading on the left. I think that's really what makes or breaks a portrait, is emphasizing on the direction of the lighting the most, and then everything else is just kind of bonus at that point. If you're interested in the materials that I'm using, you can download my ebook. It will be listed down below. It's got all of the materials that I like to use, and also where you can purchase them from. And if you are interested in learning to draw, I have all sorts of different animals that you can pick from in my Learn to Draw section on my website, but you can also just go to the description and it's got a link directly to it. But if you want to take it a step further and become more serious about drawing, I do have a full 8-week program. You can learn to draw your own pet. It's also really good for wildlife too. But each week has different topics. So one week is different style fur. The next week is different colored fur. And then another week is, drawing different animal features. So it just keeps going along like that. So it's at your own pace as well. But if you have questions, you can always email me, text me, whatever, and I'm more than happy to help you out. And then by the end of the 8 weeks, you practice your own pet portrait. So you can follow along with the guide that I have, or you can just draw your own. And once again, like I said, you can ask me questions as you go along. The left wing here, you can see I used a lot heavier pressure for the right wing. Sorry about that. The right wing here, I'm using a little bit heavier pressure, but I do go back and kind of lighten it up just like I did on the other side. I think it's really just a matter of getting that nice pattern down and having different shapes to kind of go along with it, but making sure that most of them are just, has the 4 sides. That seems to be the most important part. Tell me in the comments below, what do you think of it so far? And if you've got any questions too about anything that maybe I might have missed, or you just need some inspiration, let me know in the comments. I really like getting to hear other aspiring artists and their stories. And sometimes, just telling my story actually helps to encourage others. So a little bit about me too is I've been drawing for about 7 years now, drawing realistically with color pencils specifically. Before that, I was a photographer and dabbled in all sorts of different kind of photography, but mostly like portraits, people portraits, and wedding photography. And I quickly found out that that was not my career path. I really did not want to continue doing that. So I had to find something to do at home because I got pregnant and I was exhausted. I was pregnant and had anemia while I was pregnant. So I was just exhausted all the time. And so I found that you can draw realistically with colored pencils. And I was already kind of drawing realistically at that time, just playing around with graphite pencils. And so that's how I ended up getting into drawing realistically. I first started out with my very first portrait was of a beetle, and I fell in love with it immediately. And then I started to get into pet portraits, and that was a whole nother game for me. And really, that's how I practiced a lot, was through pet portrait commissions. And then I started to work on wildlife because that's my favorite on the side. And so then I figured out how to sell prints, how to make prints at home and then sell them at local farmer markets. And I'm still continuing to do that to this day. I'm selling at local farmers markets. I'm also teaching in-person classes and online classes, preferably online because I can kind of reach a broader audience there. And I really like the community that I am building. So that's where I'm at right now. I also work a completely different job. I work full-time, sometimes over full-time job, and then I have 2 young boys as well. So my life is very, very, very busy and chaotic. But that's a little bit about me. Tell me some about your background too. I'd love to get to know, like, what do you do, and then how did you get into color pencils, if you did get into color pencils? Okay, so getting back into the drawing, you can see I used like a very light beige color for the tips of the wings. So that's definitely a key feature for this dragonfly. So don't forget that. And then this is the end result. So that is pretty much it. Just don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below.